Hello and welcome back to another video. My name is Monica. Thank you so much for being here today. Now, today we have basically a mid-year book tag where I rank all of the books that I've read so far. And I didn't think that I read that much this year because we're already in June. And I did start reading in January, obviously. And since then, I have gone through at least one book slump, I have gone through a book slump, and so I thought that I just wasn't reading that much. However, I counted all of the books that I've read this year on my Goodreads. I have read some books. Now, I'm not like on 100 books or anything crazy like that. I think my Goodreads says that I've so far read 33 books this year. I do think that it's give or take some, like a little bit more, only because I feel like there were some books that I read that I didn't list on my Goodreads. Neither here nor there, that's okay. Either way, we've been reading and it's been a good year so far. And I have my ranked books here and I have them all here, and I have them by the rating system of like what I rated 5 stars and then kind of going down from there. And then I also combine series together. There's one series I didn't combine together because books like all came out at different times, and so I thought I would just rank them by how I read them and then how I rank them. So I put series together mostly because if not, I honestly rated the series that I did read, I rated it all sort of the same. So I kind of just did like an overall rating for those books. Further ado, we're just gonna go ahead and get started. So ranking the number one is going to be a series, and it's going to be, and I already know where it's at because do you see what I'm pulling out? The Tom and Boy series. I'm obsessed with the Tom and Boy series. Okay, so I haven't read all of them. Okay, I've only read up to book 3. However, I combined all of that because I rated all 3 of them a 5-star. They're all 5 stars for me. They're amazing. I'm obsessed with the Tom and Boy series. I went over a really shitty synopsis in the last video that I did about like the 5 books that changed my life. But essentially the Tom and Boy series follows boys who are in Ireland in the early 2000s, and basically like these are all just a combinations of friends, and so each friend sort of gets like their double book. So like the first 2 books are of Shannon and Johnny, and then the second 2 books are of Joey and Aoife, and then I haven't gone past that, but I know that I know Gypsy and I forget who he's with, but they get their own little 2 books. And so it's supposed to be YA, but it's the language is crazy, the amount of like abuse that's in these books is crazy, and there are like sexual scenes and things like that. So it's for like high-ish young adults. So like I would say like 18, 19, 17 maybe, but either way, it's so good. I love Chloe Walsh, and I've actually been meaning to read some of her other stuff, but the Tom and Boy series just has a chokehold on me. And then the next series that I actually rated underneath that was also all 5 stars for me, is going to be the series that's basically right next to it, and it is I have them backwards, but it's the When in Rome series. I love the When in Rome series. It's so cute. This is fluffy romance, and it's also closed door romance. So if you're not a big fan of like spice and you just want something lighthearted and fluffy and super cute and like strong connections with the MMC and FMC, like this is your go-to. They're also pretty quick reads. I don't think each book kind of took me forever to read. So the first one in the series is When in Rome, and then it's Practice Makes Perfect, and then it's Beg, Borrow, or Steal. And then the next one that is actually coming out is going to be, I already forgot the name of it, but I'll try to put a picture right here. Noah Walker meets Ray Rose. So this is their love story, and then Noah Walker has a sister. Her name is Annie Walker. I think she's the youngest, and so this is her love story. And Annie Walker falls in love with the bodyguard of the first FMC in this book, so that's super cute. And then in Beg, Borrow, or Steal, it's the other Walker sister, who is Emily Walker, and this is her love story between her and her colleague, who, because they're both elementary school teachers, and they are so stinking cute. And then I think the fourth book is the third Walker sister, and I believe that that one is of her and the guy that like they all grew up with, and he's like secretly in love with her, and they love each other so much. But I really love this. I love this story. I love this trilogy. Right now trilogy, but will be basically a series. The second or the third book that I'm going to rank is going to be, if I am correct, I think it's somewhere down here. The Memory Police. I also realized that in my 24-hour series where I was reading The Memory Police, I never went over a synopsis of this book, as well as like just never really told you what was happening. Like I was told you what was happening in the book, but I never told the synopsis. On an unnamed island, objects are disappearing. First hats, then ribbons, birds, roses. Most of the inhabitants are oblivious to these changes, while those few able to recall the lost objects live in fear of the draconian Memory Police, who are committed to ensuring what has disappeared remains forgotten. And so basically that's just what it is. So we are on an unnamed island, so it never tells you exactly where this is located or where you are in the world or anything like that. And then you also, every character that's in this book does not have a name, and neither does our main character. So like there's no names in this unnamed island or anything like that. And so basically that's just the premise of the story, is so we follow this main character who is a writer, and so she explains how she goes basically like kind of day by day, and it kind of skips over time of how certain things just sort of start disappearing, and with that the memories also start disappearing slowly of these different things. And one of the things that had disappeared was birds, and it was really sad because for those who had birds as pets had to let them like fly away on their own, and they had to get rid of them, and it was like really sad. But I think I just love, this is a translated work that's it's translated Japanese work, and I just really love this book. I thought it was really fun to sort of get into and really just go into like this dystopian world of like something like this could happen. I mean, you really never know. So it's not necessarily fantasy or anything like that. It's more dystopian. For the fourth one is actually a memoir. That memoir is going to be Dinner for Vampires by Bethany Joy Lenz. So if you are not familiar with who Bethany Joy Lenz is, she is who played Haley in One Tree Hill. And if you've never seen One Tree Hill, what are you doing? Go watch One Tree Hill. It's so good. It's so amazing. It's an early 2000s kind of drama show. It's really good. But she plays Haley, and she basically talks about how she basically was in a cult while being in this show. And so she kind of goes through her story of like when she was younger, how she grew up in a religious home, in a very conservative home. And then as she got older and started, you know, becoming a little bit more famous, she did also enter this like religious group that was supposed to be helping her, and basically kind of keeping her relationship with God, but also making sure that she's not lonely, has somewhere to stay and things like that, just to find out that they were taking advantage of her the whole time, and more so financially and like with her innocence. And so she also kind of goes through her thought process of how when she was in it, of how she came to the conclusion of, wow, I'm in a cult. And I just thought it was a really beautiful story for her to tell. It's not a super long memoir. So I typically actually don't rate memoirs. I don't like to give them ratings only because who am I to say your story was ass or your story was not that great and I didn't like it? You know what I mean? Like, who am I to rate someone's truth? However, if I did have to rate this, I think I would give it a 4.5, only because I feel like she could have given me more. She could have given me a little bit more, but I mean, I ate up what I got. And I also think that the cover is stunning. I think that she looks beautiful on the cover. I love like the color scheme that she chose of everything. And then the next book that I am going to rate also a 4.5 is going to be The Boyfriend by Freida McFadden. So with Freida McFadden, not all of her, I don't think I have well, actually that's a lie. Housemaid is kind of worth the hype for me, and I thought it was really good, and so I did give that one 5. But this was a close second. This one is a 4.5. And mostly because the twist did get me in this one. I'm not gonna lie, a lot of the times I do predict her twists at the end, but that's because I've become familiar with her writing and her writing style, and you know how she gets crazy with her endings and her twists. But it's all good. They're still such a fun read. So this one was one of my favorites from this year for thrillers. I had a really good time, and I finished it, I think I finished it very like easily. So the next one I'm going to rate is also going to be a 4.5, but I don't have that book physically, so I'm going to post it here, and it is Rock, Paper, Scissors. Okay, Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. I loved it. I loved it a lot. I gave it a chance because I was hearing some really good things about this book, and they're right. This book was really good. The twist sort of got me at the end. There was kind of like a twist within a twist with this book, and one of the twists got me. The other twist, I was like, I saw that one coming. I saw it because of the context clues. I see you. This was my first Alice Feeney book, but I loved it, and I really want to read some of her other stuff. The first sentence alone in the synopsis is, think you know the person you married? Think again. Crazy! And when Adam and Amelia win a weekend getaway in Scotland, also takes place in Scotland, perfect. It might be just what their marriage needs. And basically we just kind of go along this whole book of them uncovering, I love where it takes place. The setting in this is snowy. It's like there's a blizzard going on, but then they're also in this like the super old type of church. So that was Rock, Paper, Scissors. I loved it. Gave it a 4.5. The next 4.5 that I have is actually a book that we read for my sister's book club, and it is Natural Beauty. I think I did a little bit of a vlog where I was showing me reading this. It's a really short book, but this is by Ling Ling Wang, and I loved Natural Beauty. I thought this was really good. It was very entertaining. It's not really dystopian, but it's not like it's fiction for sure. I think just fiction literature, I would say, but basically, well, no, because it's not fantasy. Maybe a thriller, maybe thriller dystopian a little bit, sort of, kind of. I don't know, who knows, because I feel like I wouldn't put it past anything in the world for this not to happen in today's society. Our narrator produces a sound from the piano no one else at the conservatory can. She employs a technique that she learned from her parents, also talented musicians, who fled China in the wake of the Cultural Revolution. But when an accident leaves her parents debilitated, she abandons her future for a job at a high-end beauty and wellness shop in New York City. And so basically we end up following our main character working at this beauty shop, and this beauty shop is extremely obsessed with making everyone feel and specifically look beautiful. So they sell a bunch of supplements, they do a bunch of like procedures, and they sell a bunch of products that just essentially help people look younger and more vibrant. And so I really love the way that she took these inspirations that I'm assuming are from like today's standards of like being obsessed with beauty and doing anything to achieve that end of look or feel. So she basically starts off being like this really normal person that comes into the store and starts working here, and then she kind of gets sucked into all of these procedures and all of these products and everything that they sell, and then all of a sudden to feeling accepted and feeling like she can fit in now because she looks a certain way, if that makes sense. Okay, next book is Madonna and a Fur Coat. This was also a 4.5. This was also a book club book from earlier this year. I think this was January's book club book or February's book club book. This is also translated work, but I forget from which country or I forget from which language. So the magical novel about a Turkish man who falls in love with an artist in 1920s Berlin recreates a vanished era and dramatizes a doomed relationship. First of all, it's also short. It's super short. I gave this a 4.5. It wasn't a full 5 for me, just for vibes, but I thought that this was a really it's sort of like right person, wrong time sort of vibe. That it's essentially what I got from it. I did tab a few things here, and it was just some quotes from the female main character herself. So basically it's this man, he ends up going to an art gallery and he sees this art piece that he not becomes obsessed by, but he becomes fascinated by it. It's this woman, I forget how she's dressed. I think she's dressed literally like in a fur coat, and he loves the way it looks, and he's just admiring it. And then in the same setting where he's admiring the painting, someone comes and talks to him and basically starts saying like, hey, like, do you like that painting? And he's like, yeah. But he didn't want to say what he was actually thinking of how he was admiring the painting. And so the lady talking to him is like, well, what does it remind you of? And he's like, oh, it reminds me of my mother. And she's like, weird. Because I'm assuming from the way she was dressed, she's like, you're going to think of your mom? But okay. That person ends up being the person in the painting. And so he didn't know that at the time, but then he sees her, he meets her, and then they kind of start talking, and they start developing like a friendship that turns into a somewhat relationship, because he's like, I want to date you. And she's like, nah. She's like, but I like you though. But I want to be your friend. I'm not trying to give you anything more that I can't give. And so it's like this whole story of, you could tell that they were for each other, but I think it was just not the right time for either of them to be with one another. The next book that I rated a 4.5 was actually a newer book that I just finished, and it is Story of My Life. This was so good. I love Lucy Score. I think something that my sister and I said is that we forgot how much we actually liked Lucy Score, mostly because she's not an everyday read. Like I haven't read her entire backlist. The only book that I've read from her, Things We Never Got Over, and then I still never finished that trilogy. I think the only reason she's not a 5 for me is because, respectfully, she's thick and she got a lot to say for a romance, which is fine. It's no tea. It's just, it's a romance, you know what I mean? You could be a little bit less descriptive on how the town meeting went and more descriptive on how much they love each other. You know what I mean? She's just a little too descriptive with some scenes that I'm just kind of like, okay, we didn't need all this extra information, but thank you for setting it up anyway, I guess. But basically, Story of My Life is we follow our main female character, and so she is a writer, but she had recently gone through a divorce who put her into a slump for a couple years. And so basically her publisher is like, you need to write another book or I'm giving you the boot. And so she tries to find inspiration, but the only way she can find inspiration is she ends up moving to a small town where she buys a home, and it's all beat up, and she ends up hiring these 3 brothers who are like it's like a family company, and she hires them to basically rebuild her house. And we basically just follow the story of her living in this town, falling in love with the people, meeting new people, and then falling in love with one of the carpenters. And it's so cute. She writes Grumpy Sunshine really well, and I just thought it was really cute, and I have no complaints on the spicy end of things. I think for Lucy Score, now reading other spicy books, I would probably put her at like a 3.5 on a spice level. Another new book that I also gave a 4.5 that I actually own, but I don't currently have because my sister still hasn't given it back to me, The Great BBL. It is The Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry, and it was actually my first Emily Henry book this year. We read it for my sister's book club, and it was so cute. I loved it. It definitely has the same vibes as The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, because so we have our MMC and our FMC who are both journalists who are writing the story of this semi-celebrity lady who her family grew up rich since like her great-grandfather or something like that. He built like his own company, parents took over, and so they became rich, and then so she grew up wealthy, and then she ends up marrying a blues singer or jazz singer, and so basically she's talking about their love story and how they kind of, you know, how their story went. The reason it's Evelyn Hugo vibes is because she is telling her story within a story. So these 2 journalists, she's telling their story to this journalist, and so we're hearing the story from her perspective. Did any of that make sense? I hope so. Really good. I really liked it. My sister and some of the other girls in book club didn't like it for that reason. They're like, it was too similar to Evelyn Hugo, and I'm like, I personally loved Evelyn Hugo, so I think that's why I liked it. But either way, but the romance between the FMC and MMC is a little bit on the back burner, so there's kind of specks of romance into the book, and it's not the main plot. However, I was told that that's how Emily Henry writes some of her books, and she's very similar to Abby Jimenez, and I like Abby Jimenez. I heard that they're comparable. Who knows? I do have some other Emily Henry books that I have not read yet. but she will be read, I promise. The next one I'm going to rate that I gave a 4.25. Lights up. This was one of the dark romances that we read for my romance book club at work, and this was really good. I liked it. I think I had a little bit of a different picture of who I wanted the MMC to be. He seemed, it's like behind the mask, he was hardcore and he was tough and he was and then like outside of the mask and, you know, as a normal person, he was very like, he was really nice. I was just thinking, for a dark romance, like, you can have a little bit more bite to you, you know what I mean? But I don't have any other, I don't really have a lot of complaints of this book. I had a really fun time reading this. I think my favorite character in this book was the cat. If you've read this book, then you know. We follow Allie, who, like, you know, as during the day, she is fighting for lives as a trauma nurse, and then at night when she goes home, she likes to scroll through TikTok, and specifically what's on her FYP is masked men. And so there's this one guy that she really obsesses over, and he does these videos like in his room, and he has like masks, and he also plays with like knives and things like that, like whatever. He ends up finding her, I forget how, I think he ends up reading her comments on all of his videos. He ends up like basically sneaking into her house when she's not there, taking a video in her room and then posting it, and then her being like, hey, a lot of those things in your video look familiar, but like I'm gonna pretend that like I didn't see that. And then eventually she's like, oh my god, he was in my room. And basically the story goes from there. And so she tries to, I don't want to spoil more because I feel like it's a little bit at the beginning of the book, but I don't want to spoil too much because there is a part in the book that I felt was a little bit random, and it's a little bit towards the end and how this book ends, which I'm assuming is how the next book takes place. But I just felt like it kind of came out of left field a little bit, so I felt like it was a little bit all over the place towards the end, but it still didn't take away like of how fun I was having while reading this book. So that was a 4.25. And so the next one that I have after that one, this one was also a 4.25, and it is All of the Missing Pieces. This was also this was also a book club book, so a lot of these are going to be book club books because they are what keep me going when it comes to reading. But basically this is a romance, not thriller, but a romance mystery sort of. Ridley Sawyer knows what it's like to miss someone, to feel like a piece of her has vanished because it happened to her the night her twin sister disappeared. Now Ridley channels that loss into hope, travels the country covering cold cases for her true crime podcast. She might not have found justice for her sister, but that doesn't stop her from finding it for others. And so basically that's what this book is. So she basically she's the host of a crime podcast, and so she has, you know, listeners tell her their story, and so she goes and tries to help unsolve some of these cases. And so she basically goes to the same town where her sister disappeared, or where she tries to uncover her sister's disappearance a little bit more. And so she ends up traveling back to where she was last seen, which is this really small town. And so in that small town she ends up meeting the sheriff, and the sheriff ends up being our MMC. But aside from that, we also get like a little bit of a mystery because she's trying to uncover the story of what happened to her sister, and then there's a little bit of a twist at the end. And I thought it was a really good time. I had a lot of fun reading the story. I felt a little bit, because it's a mystery romance, so it was more mystery than it was romance, and so whenever the romance came into play, I kind of forgot that I was reading a romance. So I feel like it was kind of coming in a little bit at random, but every time I remembered that that's what the theme of this book was, then I was like, okay, it's not that bad. But I overall really liked the story. I thought it was really good. Or the next one that I'm going to rate is going to be a 4-star. It's going to be my first 4-star, and it is In an Instant. I read this one on Kindle. I think it was Kindle, or I read it on Hoopla. I think I read it on Hoopla. So we have life is over in an instant for 16-year-old Finn Miller when a devastating car accident, tumbles her and 10 others over the side of a mountain. Suspended between worlds, she watches helplessly as those who she loves struggle to survive. Okay, yes, this book was crazy and I loved it a lot. I didn't give it a full 5 just for like vibes, and I thought it was really good. her family wanted to travel up to a mountain or something like that, and basically they end up getting into a car crash. The car travels down the mountain, and so they end up in this like snowed kind of middle of nowhere type place, and I believe she ends up dying. It's all in the beginning of the book. She ends up dying because the rest of the book is basically her soul or her ghost or her something ends up watching as everyone tries to survive. And so it's like her cousin, her aunt, her mom, her dad, her brother, and things like that. And so she's watching this as everyone tries to survive on their own, and she's not able to help them. She's basically just a bystander to this whole wreck, and it's honestly really sad. But I really loved it because there is something that happens in the book that's really sad, and so the way that she describes it is just heartbreaking. The next one that I'm going to rate, also a 4 stars. This is also a series, and so this is going to be the Never After series. So again, I have only gotten up to book 3. So I have read Hooked, I've read Scarred, and I've read Wretched. And all 3, I think the one that I rated the highest was Scarred. I rated that one like 4.5, but overall I think as a series right now so far I'm rating it a 4. So each book is based off of a different, it's not really based off of, it's very loosely retelling of fairy tales, and that's basically just what they are. And so basically all you get in each one is like the names of characters that you know, and maybe similar storylines and maybe like theme, but for the most part that's all it is. But each one is a romance. They're all dark romances, and they're all told differently. Like the first one is a modern romance retelling of Hooked, like Peter Pan, Wendy, Hooked. Second one is Scarred, based off of like Lion King and something else, but you get like Mufasa Scarred, the Scarred King, and then the third one, Wretched, is based off of like the Wizard of Oz, and so you get like, her name isn't Elphaba, her name is Evelina, but her sisters' names are Nessa and Dorothy, and just stuff like that. And so there's other themes and other tellings that are going on in these stories, but they're a lot of fun to read. I don't really have any major complaints, other than like they're good to read if you're kind of looking for an easy go-to dark romance that's not too dark, because they're really not. I just like them. I thought they were fun. Okay, I'm almost done, I promise. The next one that I'm going to rate a 4-star is actually one that I read during the 24-hour challenge. The Love Hypothesis. The Love Hypothesis I'm giving a 4 because I thought it was overall okay. I already gave my rating on this at the end of the 24-hour readathon. I can't remember if I rated it a 4 or a 3 point something, but I'm overall right now, after some time, giving it a 4. And that's just where I'm ranking it at my mid-year of where I'm at right now. So basically, we have Olive Smith, who doesn't believe in long-lasting relationships, but her best friend does, and that's what got her into this situation. So basically, she ends up fake dating her professor. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. She ends up fake dating a professor at Stanford, and so that's kind of what this is. So she ends up like kissing him out of desperate need, because she ends up seeing that her ex is at the same conference that they were at, and so in order to look like she's not a lonely bitch, she ends up kissing the first person she sees, and it ends up being a professor. And so basically they end up fake dating, and that's just kind of what the trope is. The only thing I didn't really like about the story was the miscommunication, because there's a lot of feelings that go on with her, and she's just not communicating to him of how she's thinking and how she's feeling, and I feel like it's ruining a lot of the vibes. And so that was kind of annoying, but overall I just thought it was cute. I thought it was a really cute one. Also, nothing spicy happens until about the middle part of this book, and that's honestly the only spicy thing that happens. I did see recently that there is a hardback version of this now, and the pictures that are inside the hardcover are part of the spicy scene, and it's so good. It's so pretty. I loved it. The next one, this is the only series I didn't put together because these books came out separate times, and the newest book came out earlier this year. This next book I'm ranking a little bit higher than the newer one, but that's okay. And that's because I read Iron Flame this year, and so this is the newer version of the paperback. They came out with the paperback. I personally love the paperback a little bit better than like the hardback. I don't know, I just think they're so pretty. But anyway, I rated this 3.75, so not a full, or it's tinkering a little bit between a 3.75 and a 4. I'm not really sure, but I personally loved Fourth Wing a lot better than I did Iron Flame, but I do know and I understand that Iron Flame had to get a little bit more under the politics of everything and explain Violet's kind of situation a little bit more in depth, and we had to get to know a lot of different characters and just sort of get in her head in that aspect. I will say though, because this was so heavy with like the political side of everything else, and there was just so much happening, a lot of fighting and a lot of up and down and a lot of screaming and a lot of I don't even know, that I got lost in it. So I read this one in order to read Onyx Storm. The next one is going to be a book that I actually do have. I thought I didn't have it, but I do have it, and it is If He Had Been With Me. So If He Had Been With Me is a young adult romance, and so okay, Autumn and Finn used to be inseparable, but then something changed, or they did. Now they do their best to ignore each other, and then basically it ends up explaining how like she's in a relationship and he is like in love with her, but then he sees that she's in a relationship, so then he gets into a relationship and then she ends up breaking up with her relationship. It's this whole spiral of two best friends who were in love, but they kind of had their own things going on at home that really troubled them, so then they couldn't really express to one another how they felt, so then they ended up falling, well, I'm mostly talking about her now, but Autumn ends up basically falling into this little depression pit because her parents end up splitting up. If I were to read this when I was like 13 specifically in my life, when I was 13 with things going on in my life at this time, I would have ate this up, and now this would have been a full 6-star for me, absolutely. But it is a little bit young adult, so it does read like one, but it's honestly pretty fun. For the people that are saying that they're crying over this, I definitely see why. I almost forgot the ending. I definitely see why, but it didn't get me, and I kind of saw it coming. It's a really good story. It's a good story. I liked it. I liked it enough to go buy it. The next one that I'm going to rate a 3.5 is going to be Ward D. This one I read an audiobook, and I did do a reading blog on this one. And so another Frida McFadden book that I also really liked. Ward D, we have a med student who is doing a medical student, Amy Brenner, spending the night on a locked psychiatry ward. Amy has been dreading her evening work at Ward D, the hospital's inpatient mental health unit. So yes, so this whole book takes place in one night, which I love. I love one setting books. I love one setting movies. I love one setting like stories in general. I think they're cool. But this all takes place in one night, and so basically she goes in, she does her shift, and so things start happening, and so patients kind of get crazy, and we kind of try to uncover. A whole lot happens during the night, and it's really good. I liked it a lot. I think if you're going to enter your Frida McFadden journey, I think this is one that you can start with. It's really good, and it's really simple. The next rating that I have is going to be a 3.25, and this is another series. It's more of a duology, but Haunting and Hunting Adeline. So I read these for the first time earlier this year, and because I saw that they were on Kindle Unlimited, and so I read Hunting Adeline on Kindle Unlimited, and then I ended up reading the physical of Hunting Adeline. And let me tell you, this was technically my first full dip foot into dark romance. And I think I can do better with writing, but story, I keep coming back to this and keep saying, like, I've read worse. And when they tell you that hunting is worse than haunting, they're not lying to you. The writing style is not great. Respectfully, H.D. Carlton. I honestly have another one of her books, though. So that's getting ready to be read. Yes, ma'am. I didn't hate them. I loved them. My camera's dying. I need to hurry up. Okay, I love these. Okay, they were great. I can't tell the synopsis of that one, but if you don't really want to know, you don't want to know. Just know that it's dark romance. The next book that I'm going to rate a 3.25 is going to be The Teacher by Frida McFadden. Also another Frida McFadden book. Yes, ma'am. Now, I was already told that The Teacher, like, I already understood that this was going to be a trope, and so I kind of told myself, like, I'm getting through her backlist, so I might as well just get it over with anyway. I wasn't surprised with how well I liked it. I think she did a really good job with, doing something with that trope. The ending, I will say, the other twist that I had at the end, that I was at the very end, because there's 2 twists at the end for this one, and I was like, and the next one is going to be right. On Goodreads, I rated it, like the star rating is a 3, but then I put in my review that I put like a 2.75. I think it's more of a 3.2. I didn't hate Bride. I actually, because now that I'm thinking about it, I think I liked it better than The Hypothesis, but I rated The Hypothesis a lot higher, and I think it's maybe story-wise. I personally liked Bride. I didn't hate it. I would even recommend this to someone for sure. I think I just felt like there was a lot happening. There was a lot of stories happening, like with her, with him, and then with like his little sister, but then they were also falling in love with each other, and so that romance, you know, had to have its own story. And I don't know, I feel like there was a lot happening, and I couldn't really, my eyes were going all over the place, you know what I mean? That's just kind of how I felt about this one. I don't really have like a huge complaint, but that's my final rating, is that I think I give it, I'll give it a 3. And then the next one that I actually gave a 3-star is Onyx Storm. Onyx Storm, I gave a 3, and I thought that, again, I just felt like there was so much happening, and I don't know if it's like the high intensity that everyone is loving, or like the storyline, or I don't know. There was so much fighting happening that at some points I was like, why are we even fighting? Like, what's happening? Like, who started what? And like, I was just kind of lost through a lot of this, so it definitely could be my fault that maybe I just wasn't paying attention. But I do want to reread this. I just don't want to reread it anytime soon. So Onyx Storm, I ended up giving a 3. Not my favorite. I think there's definitely been better. Like, I liked I think I liked them in order, if that makes sense. Like, I loved Fourth Wing. I liked Iron Flame, and then I also liked Onyx Storm. I think I was just lost in so many. It's just, this is so far this series has become a beloved series, and so everyone is obsessed with it, and I completely understand. But I'm just kind of like, what am I missing? Because I'm just lost. And then the last book that I have at the very bottom of my list that I read earlier this year for February is Assistant to the Villain. I don't have Assistant to the Villain for good reason. I read it on Kindle Unlimited. I DNF'd it. I don't know if it was the mixture of fantasy. I am willing to reread it and see if I can get further into the book. I think I got about 50% of the way through though. I wasn't vibing. There were some parts where I was like, hee hee ha ha, okay, cool. But after about 50%, I was kind of like, what are we doing? What's happening? This also happened in February. We're now in June. So not a lot to remember there. I just remember DNFing it at 50%. Maybe I'll do a video of like where I try to reread DNF, like books that I DNF'd, and then maybe see if I end up actually finishing some, and then maybe see if I can rate some decently. Those are all the books that I've read this year, and I think we have so far have read many good books, many good series, and I cannot wait to read so many more. And if you really want to keep up with what I've been reading throughout the year, you can follow my Goodreads, or you can also follow my story graph. I will have both linked in the description underneath. That's all I got. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!